Ever since I was a kid, I've loved animals, especially dogs. He had a very tough life and he died before he was 2 years old.
Oh.
It took me 8 years to have the courage to get another dog.
At that point in time when you had to go to your parents and you had to tell them that you are leaving your job.
We've also been doing puppy yoga.
Puppy yoga?
Yeah.
That's something that I've heard for the first time.
3 issues problematic with breeding. The first one,
Hello friends, today at Big Bang Chats, I am meeting very interesting and a special guy, Adittya. He's the one I think who's introducing puppies yoga to this country. He's the founder of Puppizo, and let's understand from him what does it take to start a pet business. Hey Aditya, thank you so much for taking out time for speaking to us. How are you doing?
I'm good and the pleasure is all mine. It's great to connect with you.
Thanks, yeah. Thank you so much. So help me understand, before we actually talk about Puppizo, I'm sure when you were schooling and in grade 10th and in grade 12th, when you were looking at careers at that point in time, what was your thought process? How did you go about picking up the subjects? And, what was happening at that point in time before Puppizo happened?
So when I was in school, I was very much inclined towards sports as opposed to academics.
Okay.
So any and all academic decisions were usually set not because of planning but because of deadlines. So you have to choose your stream. So okay, what stream do we choose and so on. In school, I was captain of the cricket team. I was totally focused on cricket, but lots of injuries and all made me reconsider, the athletic path forward. Some of my friends have continued and they're playing Ranji and hopefully in the IPL soon. So I see that as a road not taken, but I'm rather happy with the fact that I didn't go down that path. So I ended up choosing because of deadlines, as I said. So in 9th or 10th is when we have to decide our stream. That's the first major decision. And that decision took a very long time. In my case, they had to do that aptitude test. I'm from step-by-step school.
Right.
So over there, I did that aptitude test and there was a huge disparity in my aptitude versus my marks. So the teachers were a little confused as to, this kid's bright, but he doesn't do that well academically. What's happening? It's because I didn't care too much about academics, to be very honest. So I ended up choosing science for like 1 week. And then I came to commerce because the first day in science class, I was expecting more of a, the first class in any given college or school or any setting, you usually expect that you will introduce yourself, you'll talk about your hobbies, your strengths and weaknesses. So I was ready with that, like, I'm Aditya, I like cricket and so on. And the first day in science class, they were like, okay, you must have done the first exercise in your tuition, so we'll start with exercise number 2. I was like, I was ready, like, I'm Aditya, I like this. So I switched to commerce. Commerce was a little more, I switched to commerce in the second week and they were still talking about who they are and what your strengths are. So I was happy over there.
Okay, cool.
So switched to commerce, liked my choice because I like careers more oriented towards commerce, but I'm a big fan of the sciences, which is why that confusion came up in the first place.
Okay.
So I chose commerce and I graduated in 2018. I passed 12th and again after 12th, because there's a deadline, you have to figure out where you have to go to college. So again, that process started. What do we want to do? And I was inclined more towards business. So I figured the best college in India is Shahid Sukhdev College of Business Studies.
From IP University.
Yeah, from Delhi University.
Delhi, okay.
Delhi University. At the time, they used to be the DUJAT. Now they've come up with the CUET. I'm not sure of the format. So for me, after boards, there was still like a 3-month period between the boards and the JAT. So you still had to, study. But thankfully, the JAT is more aptitude based rather than studying based. So I cleared the JAT, got into Shahid Sukhdev College of Business Studies. And that was my choice for college. And in college, you're in this phase where you kind of want to rediscover yourself, redefine yourself, understand, choose a different path or,
You're exploring yourself.
Exactly. So I decided in college, I'm not going to pick up any sport because I've done the sports life. I want to do something else. I was confused between dramatics and debating. I chose debating and I debated at a university level for 3 years, did fairly well. And after college, there was a question of what do we do? Where do we work? Most of my friends wanted to get into consulting. I again didn't want to do consulting because that was too much back end work. I mean, it's a great amount of work, but I wanted to explore something different. In my first year, I wrote a paper on automation. So it was always fascinating to me how machines have essentially marched along with human progress. And I felt the next big change will be through AI and automation. Like we're seeing that these days with, the likes of ChatGPT.
Correct.
But at the time, I was really interested in that field. There's a company called Adverb. They're based in Noida. They're an MNC. So they came to my college for recruitment. They only hired one person, that was me, and it was a great experience. So I joined Adverb. They put me under the CRO, the Chief Revenue Officer. I worked under him for about a year before I decided that this is great, but I want to follow my passion. And that's when I quit my job and started Puppizo.
So how all of a sudden from automation to pets?
Because there's a parallel story that's also going on which doesn't reflect with academics and career choices.
Please share that.
A completely, love-based thing. So ever since I was a kid, I've loved animals, especially dogs.
Okay.
So ever since I was 6-7 years old, as young as I can remember, I used to have this habit of feeding all the street dogs in my colony.
Wow.
I've named all of them, and one of them, Bruno, who was the first dog I ever fed, is still alive to this day. I've been feeding him for the past 16, 17 years. So he's a very old dog. He's a very old dog. And it's remarkable he's still alive, touch wood. So I've always been passionate towards that. So I've always had like 3-4 streeties that I fed, and then that number kept expanding, growing until I've also helped certain shelters, but that love for pets was always there for dogs. When I was 11, I really wanted a dog of my own to keep in the house. So we got a Labrador, and that Labrador was named Buddy. I got him for my 11th birthday, and it was the most excited I've ever been about anything. I got him, but unfortunately, he had a very rare disorder, which is genetic. He had hemophilia, in which essentially, if you're cut, you don't clot easily. So that's a very deadly condition in humans. But in dogs, it's almost impossible to, because you can't tell when they're feeling sick, right? They'll just be a little less active. So he had a very tough life, and he died before he was 2 years old. And I remember about 12 when he died, and I was very sad. And it took me 8 years to have the courage to get another dog, because I was just so terrified of going through that pain. The pain of losing essentially a family member is a lot. And that was a huge, burden that I carried with myself, because every 2 or 3 years I would, just think of getting a pet, and then just no. And until 2021 came about, and in 21 I was also thinking about perhaps moving abroad, because I was working under the CRO who was based in America, and I was thinking of taking the GMAT. So I figured there'd be a vacuum at home if I left. So I felt that if not for me, I should definitely have a pet in the house for my mom, who's also a big fan of dogs and isn't
who's also a pet lover.
Who went through the same trouble as me and has the same passion. So I figured that there should be some, dog at the house, even if I'm not there. This makes me sound like the dog, but
some family member, company for them to take,
exactly,
to get engaged with and spend some time with.
Because they bring a lot of happiness.
Correct. They do.
They just do. Unconditional
happiness. And what I really love about them is that they are absolutely unconditionally loving you all the time till their last breath.
They're pure. I mean,
they're pure.
As much as we love other human beings, we don't trust another person completely.
Correct.
That easily.
Correct.
But if a dog is loving you, you know that love is pure. He's not going to, have any...
he's not loving you for any other reason but for sheer love.
Sheer love, and maybe some treats. But that's about it. And that's a fair compromise. There's no judgment from them. So anyway, they're awesome. Is what my point is. So we got Kobe. My pet's name is Kobe, and he is one of the best dogs I've ever come across. No bias. It's just that he's my dog, but no bias.
Okay.
So I got him,
Yeah.
and when I got him, he was about 6 to 8 weeks old, and it's very common for a pet when they're welcomed into a different environment for the first time when they're adopted, that they may develop a fever or some sort of minor issue like vomiting.
Some discomfort would be there.
It's normal. It's very normal settling in period.
Correct.
But because of the bad experience I'd had with Buddy, I was damn scared. Kobe came home, and the night he came home, I was up with him all night. He was barely, like 1 or 2 kgs. He's a 35 kg dog now. So he was 1 or 2 kgs. He was lying in my lap.
In your lap all night.
All night. He had a slight fever, and I had a major stress. His fever was less severe than the stress and anxiety that I had.
Sure you must have developed some temperature yourself.
Yeah. Like I think we were about par.
Same.
We both had fever as a result. So I figured that this shouldn't be the case. I shouldn't be this afraid, and I'm not the only person that's this afraid. I'm sure that there are other people also
who are going through the same experience.
That go through the same experience, right? So I felt that something should be done about this, but I put that on the back burner because I feel, this is just my thinking, that you should let an idea sit for a while before you act on it. Because sometimes, especially decisions which are irreversible, like quitting your job or taking a major decision, you shouldn't make off the cuff. You should probably give it some time.
So help me, that when you were going through this initial experience with Kobe, what was going in your mind? How were you looking at taking this transition of quitting your job to picking this up as a career? And what exactly were you looking at doing with pets?
At the time, I was not thinking of quitting my job. Honestly, I was just thinking about, I hope this kid doesn't have the same issues as Buddy. I hope he's healthy. That's all I was worried about. The only thing I was concerned about is that he should be fine. He should not have any health problems or any trouble like that, because it's just very painful as a result, right? Both for the pet and also for the family that's very attached, right? So I didn't make any decisions then. I kept thinking about it though, and when I think about 10 months or a year later, when he was about a year old, I was thinking that as a side venture, I could perhaps do, like, as a social program to encourage this. I can make a page or do some sort of content or something like that, as a side
to educate the buyers, or the people who love to, spend time with pets, that what are the basic things to take care of.
Exactly, like as a side project while continuing my job. But the more I thought about it, it required more time, it required more dedication, it required an entire team. Even one man with full-time dedication wouldn't be able to make a meaningful impact. So that's when I decided that, okay, perhaps I should do this full-time. And just education and just telling people what they should do isn't enough, because you need to provide them with a valid alternative
solution.
Right. There are a lot of people who are very nice who adopt indies, but there are a lot of people that have fixation with breeds, right? Like my dog is mix. He's like a mix of several different bull type breeds, but there are a lot of people that want a certain breed, and that's fair, right? Because I'm no one to judge someone for their preference.
Correct.
Right. But at the same time, they also shouldn't go through the same sort of trauma of perhaps having a puppy who's very sick, who also want an ethical choice, who don't want to have, like a puppy from a puppy mill, etc. So those sort of issues are a lot more systemic, that need long-term fixes, and just doing my, education wouldn't be enough. There needs to be a proper system in place,
right,
through which you can reliably get a pet, right? And you don't have to worry about the things that you normally would have to worry about.
Correct. At that point in time, when you had to go to your parents and you had to tell them that you are leaving your job and you are taking this up as a full-time activity, what was their reaction?
To be honest, I remember it like yesterday. It was 11 or 12 at night. Everyone was asleep, and I went to my mom. I went to her. She was up. She was watching something on TV, and I asked her, "Listen, do you have a moment?" She's like, "Yeah, let's talk." So I told her this idea, and it didn't come from a perspective that, hey, I'm going to quit my job.
Okay.
It came from a very simple perspective that, listen, this is the issue that we faced,
right,
and I think other people are also facing this issue. aside from my job, which I'll continue full time, I want to do something about this.
Okay.
This is a problem we've identified,
Right.
and I had a solution in mind, right?
Okay.
Of course, the problem is still very much well identified. The solution has changed. So we discussed about it, and we figured that aside from my job, I'll do this on a part-time basis to spread awareness and offer a viable alternative.
Okay.
Spreading awareness is comparatively easier, much easier than providing a viable alternative.
Right.
It's very easy to say that, hey, this is how things should be.
Correct.
Right. But making that should be into a reality is a tall order. So first we decided that, okay, seems pretty straightforward. Let's go about it. Let's try to fix it. The more we researched, the more we did ground level surveys, spoke with vets, spoke with pet parents, spoke with breeders. A lot of homework went into it. We came to the conclusion.
So at that point in time, help me understand, the problem that you were defining was that how do we make the whole experience of adopting a pet and making it a seamless, streamlined, beautiful experience,
Correct.
ensuring that we have a healthy pup at home.
Correct.
And there is no challenge whatsoever with respect to raising that.
That's part, yes.
Okay.
I would say there are broadly 3 issues that are problematic with breeding, right? The first one is correct about ensuring that the puppy is healthy when the puppy arrives.
Correct.
The second one is about ensuring that certain genetic issues are less likely to happen, because genetics are random, right? Like
Correct.
you can be tall, your kid can be short, but there are probabilities.
And you may not identify when the pup is 6 weeks or 7 weeks.
Exactly. That's more of a long-term problem.
Correct.
Right? And the third one is regarding the ethicality of breeding, because a lot of puppies come from puppy mills, right? Which is where the cost cutting happens and the female isn't treated nicely. That's a very, very nice way of putting it, because I don't want to get into detail about the horrors of puppy mills, right?
Okay.
But that's a very big issue that needs to be solved, right? Of course, there are alternatives to buying a puppy, but from my experience and what I've seen in people is that when they have a certain breed in mind, right, they want a certain breed, simply discouraging them doesn't work, because more often than not, they'll just feel ashamed about their choice, either not get a pet at all, or probably still get one and say that it's adopted,
not fully happy about it.
It makes an uncomfortable experience for all parties
Right.
involved, right? It results more in black marketing
Correct.
kind of a situation, which is obviously going to be suboptimal. So those issues, right? Now, how we went about figuring out a way to solve it is an entire conversation on its own. But long story short, we figured that the first issue that we should solve and can solve is that the puppy is healthy, right? The second issue, which is about the breed and genetics, those, thankfully, there are institutions which we partner up with that ensure that lineages are maintained properly. There's KCI, UKCI, lots of kennel clubs that ensure that this is happening. They go on the ground level and check for each litter and ensure that it's well maintained.
Beautiful.
So we lean on a lot on their guidance with respect to registered breeders.
So the biggest problem that you have solved for all the pet parents is that when you are up for adoption, make sure that you are adopting the healthy pup.
Yeah, so not just that, it's also a lot of convenience, because making a unified platform where all breeds are available that are sourced from good breeders, and that the proper health measures are taken, all the quality checks are happening, all the health checks are happening, that a qualified veterinarian is looking at this issue. That's an entire process, which is why when somebody books a puppy with us, we don't immediately give, hey, here's your puppy, right? We always ask for 2 to 3 days to ensure that those processes are done properly and there's no compromise when it comes to that.
So when somebody is looking at a puppy and he or she is getting on to Puppizo, then is there a questionnaire or is there a way to understand the buyer's requirement, or understanding the profile of the buyer?
Yes.
And then really helping him or her with the right choice.
Of course. And it's not just a questionnaire, because there are a lot of these online quizzes that which breed should I get?
Correct.
But
I've seen them.
Very misleading.
Okay.
I took one. a while back, and it recommended me to get a Belgian Malinois.
Okay.
Fantastic dog, but I don't have 18 hours of the day to dedicate to that dog, because Belgian Malinois require that kind of attention. They're police dogs, they're working line dogs. No, an average citizen should not be going for a Belgian Malinois, although they're a great dog.
Okay.
Right. So what we realized is that a human element needs to factor in. There are a lot of questions which, can't be answered on a scale of 1 to 5.
Then you
We
guys
have qualified pet experts who connect with each and every customer.
personally speak with them,
Understand the requirements.
Fabulous.
There are a lot of cases where even I've, interacted with some customers and told them that, listen, this breed, I know you want this. I would not recommend this for you. Right?
And why I wouldn't recommend
and why I wouldn't recommend this for you, because of XYZ reasons, right? So we have trained staff who also feel very passionately about this, that are assisting the customer through each step of the process. And our focus on this is completely to ensure that the customer is satisfied, that the issues that I faced, the customer does not have to face, right?
तो इनिशियली जब आपने स्टार्ट किया और आपने पपीजो ऑनलाइन जो है वो अवेयरनेस क्रिएट किया, एजुकेशन क्रिएट किया, और फिर ऑब्वियसली यू क्रिएटेड अ बिजनेस मॉडल अराउंड इट, इनिशियल रिस्पांस कैसा था? हाउ वाज इट द फर्स्ट 15 days? हेल्प मी, take me through the whole process journey of the first 15 days of starting Papizo.
So the first 15 days, see, before anything actually goes live, there's like months of preparation and stuff that keeps on getting delayed.
So kitna mahina you did all that?
It went from, say, March up until August, September.
Wow.
Right?
So you
took most of that was part-time, right?
5-6 months.
Yeah, like it takes that kind of homework. It takes, like, and I'm not even counting the homework before March, but there was a lot of work that went into it even before it's, live.
Gone online.
How there's a saying that there's an overnight sensation that took 21 years in the making when it comes to athletes. They've practiced for 21 years and suddenly they're an overnight sensation. Similar things happen with any kind of business also, right? Yeah. So when we launched, for the first few weeks, we had no response because because I started this from my own savings, right? Whatever I worked, I saved, I put this into it. So we didn't, go crazy and spend, lakhs and lakhs on advertising and let's get our name out. So it was a slow response, but an organic response. So
first 15 days, almost no response. What was happening, here?
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
Refresh.
So million times a day you were refreshing to see first order.
Yeah, like somebody was inquiring. So that took and the first time we got an inquiry, there's a very famous story. I'm not sure which company it was for. I think I could be wrong. It was maybe for Lenskart or some online multi-chain seller who are now like a huge company, right? But when they got their first order, it was like the co-founders only talking about it, assembling it and getting it done. So it was kind of like that.
All of us have gone through that.
All of us have gone through that. So it was kind of a situation like that.
Right.
We got our first query. We were all super excited, so that's how it started. But organically, because of the work we were doing, we built up a reputation, a name. So that's how it's grown. And when it comes to social media and our growth online, right, starting response was from friends and family. We built a very small following of, say, about 300 or 400 followers. It was stuck at that for a very long time. And then suddenly one reel goes viral and you go to 150,000 views and 3,000 followers and then 8,000 followers. Now we're at 50,000 followers and growing. And now we get like 1 million views, 3 million views and so on.
Awesome.
So it's, like slowly, organically building it. It's kind of like that. And even when it comes to our online content, it's all stuff that we believe in, that's truthful, that's from the heart. Because I don't believe in fluff and just talking about things that don't make sense.
Great. So what would you advise to all the children out there who are looking at picking this up, something like this as a mainstream career? What does it require, to be successful in becoming, say,
any offbeat business?
Say, for example, let's talk about pet industry. So, what would you advise them? What are some of the things that you believe is most important, critical, mandatory for them to be successful?
I'd say for any business, for anyone to step in, and before I started and even during my time, I speak to people that are in business, not just pet care, in any business, right? And I'll tell them exactly what I've heard from most people, and that is, have good intention, treat people well, And from personal experience, I will say have grit and determination.
Mm.
If you believe in something, if you
Mm.
believe that something needs to be done and that no one's doing it,
Mm.
but it needs to be done,
Mm.
you do it.
Do it. If I look at your case, Aditya, more so it is coming from a personal space because
Correct.
you have a lot of compassion, you have a lot of love, you have a natural tendency towards pets. You from the very childhood you have been, there's enough consistent data to showcase that you have a lot of love and compassion for them, and hence when you are looking at coming up with all these possible revenue streams or business models or services that you want to introduce going forward are coming from the passion.
Yeah, I mean, we've also been doing puppy yoga, and
Puppy yoga,
yeah,
that's something that I've heard for the first time. Please tell us
yes,
about it.
puppy yoga is kind of interesting. It's
Mhm.
where people like to relax in a yoga session, but they absolutely love puppies. So it's kind of a fusion between the two.
Oh, so
Yeah,
helping human beings relax with
with
pups.
puppies. Yeah, there are people that
Awesome,
are
yeah.
absolutely gaga over it. And part of the proceeds actually go to support a shelter that I've been associated with for a very long time
Hmm.
in Noida. And so, yeah, see, it's not just about business and revenue making for me.
Sure.
Part of the part of what I do does come from a compassion space, but
Hmm.
that's my personal,
Hmm.
contribution as opposed
Right.
to something that someone has to do.
Right.
So I get what you're saying. But when it comes to strictly as a business and profession,
Hmm.
grit and determination and good intentions, that
Right.
still remains true.
Hmm. Hmm. So, what are some of the things that you are looking at adding to your services at this point in time?
See, we've gotten a lot of responses even from big companies that I can't mention on camera because
Hmm.
of certain reasons,
Hmm.
to promote their product. Right, a lot of food companies have said that, listen, we'll give you a big packet of food with every pet
So,
you
brand
sell.
collaborations are happening.
Yeah, but we've said no to that, and
Hmm.
part of the reason is that I want to ensure that everything happens in a way which is ethical and is done in a way in which the customers at the center. So we are planning on launching a lot of our own products, right? Like food, shampoos, grooming, etc., and services, of course. And these all come from a very organic space because
Hmm.
people that we sell pets to, they ask for these things and they ask us for our advice on these things. So for now, we recommend something which we think is somewhat okay.
Because somewhere you believe with you, the credibility and the trust is much more higher
Of course, of
than
course,
going to anybody else.
of course. Like months later, like 6 months later, somebody has some recommendation. They ask us. They're like,
Hmm.
"What do you think of this?"
Hmm.
And whoever has sold the puppy or has ensured that the adoption process has gone smoothly, that person is called by name. That, hey,
Hmm.
listen, I spoke to this person. Can you please connect me?
Wow.
Because I'll be very honest, like I don't have 3 or 4 or 5 dogs. I've got hundreds of dogs because each one of the pet that we've given to someone, that's a pet of mine,
Hmm.
right? And I do feel a certain level of responsibility
Beautiful.
and love for each animal that we've given,
Right.
right? So we want to ensure that they get the best, and
Hmm.
we want to ensure that that happens smoothly.
Lovely. Yeah. So, would you be happy to share that, what kind of investments have gone into this business and what could be the, approximate roughly earnings of yours?
See, when it comes to investment, more than monetary investment, the kind of time, and this is what I'll say to anyone that's a young 20 something year old that wants to start their business, right?
Hmm.
Monetary cost is one thing,
Hmm.
right? What we earn in our 20s, if we're being very logical about it, is nothing compared to what we end up earning in our 40s and 50s,
Okay.
right? You must have seen that in your career, like what you were drawing as a
Mine is
starting
a slightly
salary.
reverse case, but I'll
I'm
share.
very sorry to hit that
That's
source
okay.
code. But it's the time, right? When
Yeah.
you dedicate the prime of your life, that is the biggest cost that comes to it.
The returns would happen.
Returns will happen. And
Hmm.
when it's people often forget to think about those costs,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Money is one thing, right?
ठीक है, but
बैंक में रखा 12% आएगा, 8% आएगा,
12 भी आ सकता
हाँ,
है. So let's
depend
talk
करता
about,
है.
for example, say money. If
Yeah.
we talk about only money, how much investment do you think you would have put in?
It's tough to put an exact figure to it, but I'll need to ask my accountant.
Ah.
And in terms of profitability, thankfully we're profitable,
Hmm.
right? So
And how long you've been running this business full
it's
time?
been more than a year now.
More than a
It's been
year
more than
now.
a year.
Okay, great. Yeah, in 1 year you are profitable. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's taken a lot of effort, and
Hmm.
again, a lot of those costs aren't seen, right?
Hmm.
That's a lot of wisdom, it's a lot of
Hmm.
time, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot
Hmm.
of and again, it may seem like it's just me doing it, but I would
Hmm.
give a lot of the credit, most of the credit, to my team,
Hmm.
because one man may be in front of the camera, maybe the one that is the face of the brand, but there's an entire team that goes into supporting it.
Sure. Fabulous, yeah. Very good. Wish you all the best, Aditya.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your business with us.